Hey everybody, my name's Dr. Jonathan Lopez, and I'm many things in life. One being a Marine Corps veteran, the other being a dad. That's the most important role I have. So I started this podcast to interview dads and just discuss different topics with experts in different industries and really tackle everything from fitness and fun to faith and finance. Tune in, like and subscribe, and we look forward to having you every week. Welcome to Rad Dad Podcast. Hey, welcome back to the Rad Dad Podcast, everybody. I'm very excited to have today's guest on. We met through a business relationship, and we've become very good friends. And one of the things that I've always admired about him is he's a fantastic dad. He has a great work-life balance, and he puts his family first. So, Seth, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do and who you are in the family.
Thanks, buddy. Oh, man. Let's see. About myself. Well, first and foremost, I'm a dad. And I actually say I'm a husband first. And I say that intentionally because my dad taught me early on when I was getting married. He goes, always, always, always put your marriage first. He goes, otherwise your kids will sense that, and you'll be a better dad if you do that. So I'm a husband to Jenna. I am a dad to Connor, who's my youngest, he's my boy. Arabella, who's my mini-me, she's my middle. And then Emerson, who's my firstborn. She allowed me to get to be called dad the first time, and she'll always own my heart for that. Vocationally, I'm a business and market analyst. That's where we got to know one another. I have a great firm here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We help companies manage their risk, and I'm also an on-air media contributor. So on any given day, I'm on a national news broadcast somewhere, and I've had the opportunity to write a book and get to write publications for online media and do news and all that other stuff. And, and I'm a friend of Jonathan. So, I mean, that's got to go in the top
all
line.
That, you find time for your family. That you list it off a lot. And, I refer to you as one of the money men. So it's great. It's one of the topics I want to talk about today: money, finances, all that good stuff. But we were hanging out at the Stars game on Saturday, and you told me some good stories about your dad, and we've hung out for a while, and I've heard several stories, but this one kind of hit home to me, and it was a meaningful one for you as well. So tell me a little bit about that. Recap that for everyone.
Well, we talked about a lot. I want to make sure I get the right story.
It was about foundations.
Oh, yeah. No, that was a good one. So, I think we all find this time in our life, in our professional career, or even as a parent, as a spouse, as a partner, as insert whatever your primary focus in life is, where you can get to this place of burnout. And for me, vocationally, I was at that. This was probably 2016. I had left the firm I was at that I thought I would call home forever at the end of 2010 into 2011. That was not a planned event. It was
most of the time it's not.
Yeah, that was not one where I had thought it out for a very long time and said, I think I'm going to leave and go start a firm. No, it was, hey, I'm leaving and starting a firm, and this decision was made in about an 8-hour window. So
you call it your Jerry Maguire moment.
I call it my Jerry Maguire moment. That's right. And so, fast forward from that point to 2016 and really into the beginning of 2017. And it was one of those things where I say it now and I tell my kids this, that no one can be good at everything, but everyone can be great at something. And during that phase of my job, my vocational career, I was trying to really figure out what I was great at. And in doing that, I was trying to be good at everything. And it was really just a burnout. And I got to the point where, I was, if I was at work, I felt like I was being a bad parent, husband, family member, friend. And if I was at home, I was going, well, I'm being a bad business partner because by that time I'd had a business partner and we were building a firm. We were having a lot of success. And so, that I called it was my burning matches time frame. And I'll never forget, I sat down with a mentor of mine who to this day is still a business coach to me. And I said, I just can't find a balance in life. and I don't feel relevant in what I'm doing. Matter of fact, I think I had even told my business partner at that time, I was like, dude, a 6-pack and a Happy Meal and my half of this firm is yours. Like, I need to do something different. And so my business partner, who John, you know really well, he's my brother. I mean, he's like a brother to me, and he is one of my best friends. And I'm very fortunate that, we became business partners before we became friends, which is kind of a weird approach. But now today, he's one of my best friends. And he said, hey, we're going to go see Larry, our coach, our mentor. We jumped on a plane. We flew to Colorado. We sat in a room with Larry for 8 hours. And I just started kind of pouring out my heart. And he was telling me he's like, Seth, here's the problem. You're looking for work-life balance. Because I said, Larry, I just have no work-life balance. And he goes, you need to realize that there is no such thing. That not in the way that you're trying to make it. Like we think about a balance like a scale, right? And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to balance that scale where we're spending an equal amount of time at work and an equal amount of time with family to balance that out. That's a pipe dream. He goes, you need to think about work-life balance like the balance of a checkbook or a bank account. And that when that balance starts to come down, you need to invest heavily into it.
There's debits and credits.
That's exactly right. And that you need to make sure that your wife is on the same page with you and that your family's on the same page with you and that recognize there's going to be time where we got to make some investments, some deposits in the business and bring that balance back up. And when we do that, we'll have the luxury to reinvest that time because time is the great equalizer, right? And so that was a great message. But the secondary part of that was the story I was sharing with you was that, I remember when I was growing up as a kid, at the end of every summer, our big family trip was to go camping. We would go camping in West Texas, where I grew up, at some family property that was probably about 2.5, 3 hours from where I grew up in Midland. And I would remember I'm one of 3 boys in our family. I'm the middle. And so my older brother Shane, myself, and my younger brother Zach, when we would be headed to camp with Dad in the car, Dad would choose that time to decide who would get to build the campfire, right?
Let me guess. He wanted to see who was the quietest.
That's exactly. Well, looking back at it now, there was a lot of strategy in this. My dad's a very intelligent man. So there's a lot of strategy, right? Because who was the best got to ultimately build a campfire. And there were multiple benefits to building the campfire, right? So first and foremost, you didn't have to unload the truck. You didn't have to set up the tents. You got to play with matches. So it was like
as a kid, that's pretty awesome.
It was one of the only times in life where you got to do that and it was okay, right? So I remember, and there may have been times before this, but it was the first time I remember my dad saying, Seth, it's your turn. You're building the campfire. Man, I was super psyched, right? So I jump out of the truck and I literally forgot everything that I had ever thought about knew about building campfire. Everything my father had ever taught us about, building the fire by creating almost a teepee with the wood so that oxygen could get to it and airflow and putting kindling in it so to build early on fire and sparks and things like all the stuff that you know about building a campfire if you've ever done it, right? And instead, what do? I'm taunting my brothers like, hey, you're doing that wrong and you're unloading that. But I am gathering all the wood I can. I'm throwing it in the pit. I literally douse it with as much fuel as I possibly could. And I struck a match and I threw it in. And we all know what happens next, right?
So what you're saying is you went full middle child.
Oh,
That's a total middle child
yes.
move. I'm a middle child. I get it.
Full on boy, middle child, going all out, right? And this sucker erupted. This was beautiful. And we all probably know what happens next, right? About a minute and a half later,
it fizzled out.
Nothing there. And I could still hear the words of my father ringing in my ear from across the campsite, right? Did you build it right? I had forgotten about that moment until we were sitting in Colorado with Larry Linney and John Powder and myself, and Carrie May, our CFO, was there as well. And I was reassessing my vocational life. And it was my father's voice. Did you build it right? Vocational career, family life, parenthood, you name it. Is it all built right? And what I realized in that moment was, no, it wasn't. I was doing what I had done in that moment. I would pour fuel on it. I'd light the match. I'd put as much wood as I could in there, and it would fizzle out. And then I had to do it all over again. And instead, what's amazing thing about campfires, to draw the analogy further, is if you invest the time to build it right and to do it right, you actually don't have to add fuel. And you're going to get a lot more out of the wood. You don't have to add wood as often. You're going to get more out of it. And so for me, it was taking that step back, going back to the basics of reframing up my family life, my parent life, as a husband and as a business partner, and restructuring it and really making those investments of time. And I will tell you, since then, life has just been on a different trajectory. My marriage is better. I feel like I'm a better father. Our business has exploded, quite literally, and has grown tenfold at the very least since we launched the business, and in that short period of time. And that's really when I got into the media realm, and it was because I put those right steps in place to become great at something. And what's amazing is when you're great at something, you don't worry about all the things you're not good at anymore. And you let somebody else do those things. And you get to focus on fewer things, which is being great. And it's been a lot of fun ever since.
No, I understand that. And I think I shared, a similar story with my uncle about him always telling me, and me having that voice in my head of, look at it, figure it out. And that was one of the things that he was pointing out, was the foundation of whatever that you do. Like, you don't have to be great at everything. Be great at something, though, and concentrate on that. And, you mentioned time being the great equalizer. And I agree with that. And being a boy dad, I watch a lot of Marvel movies.
Right.
But I also grew up reading comic books. I'm a comic book nerd. I'm just a nerd in general, period.
That's why they call you doctor.
That's why they call me doctor. Yeah. I tell people I'm the overeducated idiot. I'm just reading everything. I want to consume everything. And it wasn't until, I really streamlined everything. And like you said, built it right, looked at the foundation, did my career take off as well, which allows me time to do this podcast and spend time with Christian, my son. But one thing that I still remember in one of the Marvel movies, it was Avengers Endgame, when Tony Stark went back in time.
Every time I watch it, by the way.
Yeah.
Every time.
When Tony Stark went back in time, he got to meet his dad, and he got to talk to his dad. And his dad told him, no amount of money ever bought a single second of time.
Yep.
And like, it hit me as a dad in the movie theater, watching a Marvel movie. I started to tear up. Like, this is what I'm trying to get across to people. Like, it's the moments and the experiences that your kids are going to remember, not the amount of money that you had in the bank account.
Yeah, and to that point, I think you're spot on. But I think the other thing is too, time is the great equalizer of all, right? To that point, nobody gets more than 24 hours in a day. Nobody does, unless you're flying from Dallas to California and you gain those 2 hours. But that's we can get into the semantics. But
and
really,
it could also be gone tomorrow. You will have
that's
no
exactly
time.
right. We never know. But I think we're a lot, and I was guilty of this too. And from time to time, I can find myself guilty of this. Why I'm glad I've got great friends like you and people to remind me of when I get out of line a little bit and get out of my lane. Is men specifically, we carry around this, I call it a comfortable lie, that if we're spending time and we sacrifice ourselves, we're doing good for our children or our spouse. And no, you're not, because you're probably not focused on your spouse or your kids. You're focused on the sacrifice. Sure. And I think it's where a lot of men make mistakes. And so for me, it was recognizing that for me to be the best business partner, the best father, the best husband, the best friend, I needed to invest time in me to be the best at those things. And so for me, it was making a decision of what I would do in my day, eliminate the distractions, and maximize the value of the time that I have. And so at that point is when I started waking up. I get up between 4 and 4:30 every morning. I'm not saying that that's what everybody should do. That's what I do. And I've always been a morning person anyway. So for me to get up at 4:30, it wasn't all that big of a deal. Now I will tell you, by 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, I'm pretty much toast.
You need some more coffee.
Unless we're at a Stars game, and there's probably been a couple extra cups of coffee that day, right? But yeah, so for me, and it's in that morning, the very first part of my morning, and I call it the 4 F's of life, right? Faith, fitness, finances, friendship. Those are the 4 key things that I'm going to focus on throughout my day and kind of the 4 quadrants of life for me. So very first thing is my faith. When I wake up, I do a devotional. I spend time in prayer, and that is me. And I spend time physically on my knees, and I would encourage anybody and everybody, what do you have to lose? Get on your knees. And for me, it's that, and it's not, the first 30 minutes of my day is that. Nobody else is doing. I mean, listen, I'm waking up, and it's just kind of what I do to roll out. And then I get into understanding my finances, which is, i.e., my business side. And I spend some time doing that. On the way to work, I try to reach out to a friend. That's my focus on Ryan, to make sure that my friends know that I'm there and I'm thinking of them. And then here's the other thing. When I sat down and restructured my life and my day, I stopped looking at work is 8 hours, family time is this. I looked at it as instead percentage of the time of my day. And I took the things that I do the best, and I whittled them down to 5 things, and then I listed them off. These are the 5 things that I do best that I should be doing every day in the business. And then I allocated time of the day to those things, right? And it couldn't be 100% of my day, right? Because stuff always comes up. So like this gets 20% of my day. This gets 40% of my day. This of the working part of the day. That's not 8 hours. That's of the working part of the day. And then I gave myself the grace and the freedom that if I knocked those things out, and if I invested the amount of time that I thought was necessary, I'm going to go home. I'm going to make sure I'm at my kids' karate practice. I may pick them up early and take them for ice cream. I may do those things. But that also then gives me the grace when I'm working on a big project, or maybe I've got a news media hit at 8 o'clock at night, or I'm doing an overnight or something of that sort, that I can tell the family, hey, I have to invest the time here. But that gives you that balance, as we like to call it, of quality of time and even quantity of time. You can actually get both of those things.
No, I agree with that. And our business allows for that flexibility. And, I've been very blessed to be in the role that I'm in and still be a fantastic father. And like you said, you get all your work knocked out, why not go pick up the kid early? Why, I still take Christian to his hockey practice, his private lessons, and I get on the ice with him. So we're learning together, and I'm setting an example. And, I've had a few people like, oh, well, not everybody has a job like that where they can be on the ice. And I'm like, well, but I got my work done. And that's what should matter. And like you said, it gives you that grace, if you will, from your kids or your family. When you do have to miss something for work, they understand that, and they're a little bit more lenient on you. And then that allows you to be lenient on yourself and say, hey, I'm doing the best I can. And that's all we can all do.
And that's to me, Jonathan, I think that is sometimes the most important part, is giving that grace to yourself. Now,
yes, 100%.
I'm not saying to use it as an excuse, because careful now. I think a lot of guys that I've known, and I'm not calling out names, I've been guilty of it myself, have used that sacrificial excuse, right? Well, I've sacrificed, therefore I can sit around and play video games for 8 hours a day or whatever. No. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that if you're doing the right things and you're being honest with yourself, and you're being honest with your family, right? The beauty of always telling the truth is you never have to remember what you say, right? My dad used to tell me that all the time.
Yeah.
But you have to be honest with yourself too, right? And really, character is what happens when nobody else is watching you, right? That is the time when you can say, yes, I am doing what I need to be doing, or no, I'm not, and it's time to reset.
So you've mentioned your father several times.
Yeah.
I know you have a great relationship with him. Talk to us a little bit about that. And I know he's a pastor.
Yep.
And then, that set you down the path of going to school to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And you and your dad had a great conversation about that.
Yeah, we did, actually. And so, When I was going to go into college, my plan was to play baseball. I was being recruited by a number of colleges. I was focusing on those universities that had a biblical theology program because that's what I thought I was going to do. I was going into the family business, right? I think I preached my first sermon when I was like 12 years old, right? I mean, church wasn't something you went to. It was a part of everyday life for us, as it typically is in a family like ours. And so, and we're not the atypical. We don't have that PK, story to tell. Although I'm sure that there was mischief that all three of us boys got into at times. And we grew up in Midland, which is a relatively small town. So don't get me wrong. There were plenty of sets of eyes trying to watch us to see if we would get into mischief because they couldn't wait to call Pastor Rick and let him know. But no, so I had always thought, okay, I'm going to go to vocational school. I actually went to a parochial school that had a biblical program in it. I was ordained as a minister right out of high school. I served on staff with a group out of Fort Worth called Foundation Ministries, doing summer youth camps and things like that. So it was really a cool experience, but it was interesting because I remember my senior year, and I remember vividly where I was, McMurray Stadium, Abilene, Texas. I was playing what would be one of my last high school baseball games. And my dad and I had this ritual where before the game, I would go out into center, after we've all kind of warmed up, I would go out into center field. I would stretch. My dad would come out. He'd talk to me. He'd help stretch me. We'd pray, and then we'd go about the game, right? And then it was, we're in it to
game
win
time.
it. Right. So it was this time specifically, my dad came out, and I was feeling the weight of the world of, okay, do I go here? Do I go there? What am I going to do? And I sensed my dad sensed this. And he said, I feel like you got the weight of the world on your shoulders, son. What's going on? And I lost it. I mean, right there, I am crying. Which is, I'm captain of the baseball team. It's, you don't want to do that, right? You got to be the tough guy going in.
There's no crying in baseball.
There was that day. But the game hadn't started. But I was in between the chalk lines. So, so anyway, and he said, can I ask you a question? I said, yeah. He said, why do you feel called into vocational ministry? Like, your faith can be part of your everyday life, and our faith teaches us that ministry is part of your everyday life, whether you are in it as a job or not. So my dad's saying very clearly to me, why do you feel like you're supposed to have ministry as your job? And I stopped and I thought about it, and I looked at him and I said, I don't know that I am called to do it. And he said, then don't do it. And if you ever felt like that is something I wanted for you or your mother wanted for you or that anybody wanted for you, don't worry about that. Because if God doesn't want that for you, you're making a massive mistake in your life. So I free you of any of that. And it was almost like this massive weight came off my shoulders that I now had the freedom to pursue that which maybe God was calling me to do. The problem for me in that moment, which I didn't realize till very soon thereafter, was, oh, now what? Right?
I don't know what to do.
I don't know which college to go to now. And I was like, and I think, I don't remember if it was in that conversation, but it was pretty quick thereafter that I also told my dad, I don't want to play baseball anymore either. Right? I mean, I knew I wasn't good enough to play beyond college. I could have played college. I could have signed with D1. I probably wouldn't have played a lot in D1. I could have easily played in D2. But for me, it was, I didn't have a love for the game as a player anymore. And if you've lost that and you're about to go into college athletics to do it.
Yeah, you don't want to do anything.
That's right.
You lost that fire.
And so I said, so it was that decision too. So fortunately, growing up in Midland has this really great thing. It's called the Abel Hanger Foundation Scholarship, that if you graduate from any school in Midland, Texas, in Midland County, private or public, it does not matter, and you're willing to do a certain number of community service hours and you can keep your GPA up, the Abel Hanger Foundation, or at least at the time, this was 20 plus years ago, will pay for you to go to Midland Community College. They pay lock, stock, and barrel. You can go. The only thing you got to cover is your cost of books and living. So I did that.
Easy enough, yeah.
Easy enough. I did that. So my freshman year, I am in our school registrar's office like every 5-10 minutes. Like I need to change my major.
What do I do?
That's
What's hot?
And I remember Mrs. Reed was her name. Great lady. I played baseball with her son growing up. And it was like the 5th time I was in her office. And she goes, Seth, you're a freshman taking like English 1301. You don't have to declare a major. Why do you keep coming to my office to say that you want to declare a new major? And by the way, you're at community college. Like, you won't graduate with a major of anything there.
Yeah, you need to go on somewhere else.
That's exactly
You're not
right.
going to get a degree here.
So I said, I understand that, Ms. Reed, but I've also been very goal-driven my entire life, and I have to have a destination I'm working towards. Otherwise, I feel like I'm not accomplishing anything. So she said, okay, well, what is it that you really want to do? I said, I have no idea. She goes, what do you really like to do? I said, well, I really like to play golf. She's like, okay, well, are you any good? I'm like, no. Terrible. Former baseball player, still swing a golf club like a baseball player, and the ball is going to go somewhere. I have no idea where it's going to go. I'm an 18 handicap on a good day, and there's not many good days. She said, all right, here's what you're going to do. Best advice I ever got, by the way. She said, go down to the local golf course at on Wednesday, because you don't have any classes. I'm looking at your class list. You don't have any classes on Wednesday afternoon, so go to the golf course like 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Sit outside of the clubhouse, and when people are making the turn, so they played 9, they're turning, they're about to go play the next 9. Ask them what they do for a living that allows them to play golf at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on a Wednesday. And whatever that is, that's what you do. And to my surprise, the vast majority of them were in the financial services arena in some way, shape, or form, whether that's insurance or stocks or bonds or anything like that. And here I sit today. That was the intro into me getting into the financial services arena. So great advice. Thanks, Ms. Reed, wherever you are. Appreciate it.
Here we both sit in that industry, and same thing. I love playing golf. Am I good at it? No.
Yeah,
absolutely not. But is anybody? And
although we have recently won a tournament,
we did. We 3rd place at the St. Jude.
It got
Classic.
us a trophy.
Yeah, we got a trophy.
That's right.
I don't even know what I keep in it right now.
It's on my desk. It's showing me that
It's
I still get to play
something.
3 rounds of golf a year if I'm lucky.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and I've been watching a lot of golf lately. And last night I watched a 30 for 30 special on Greg Norman.
Okay.
About him never winning a Masters. But I thought back to watching the Tiger Woods documentary on HBO Max. Have you seen that?
I have not.
So, again, as a dad, I view a lot of things from that perspective. Like, I personally believe The Mandalorian on Disney is about a dad. I mean, he's taking care of little Grogu the whole time. He's not technically his kid, but he's making sure he's safe, getting to where he is. He cares about him. And I see that in a lot of movies that aren't about being a dad. Like the last Tom Hanks movie, Finch, on Apple, same thing. He had this dog that he took care of, and then he created this robot, and he took care of it like a dad. But anyways, back to Tiger Woods. His dad was such a huge influence in his life on everything from golf, and then unfortunately on the marriage side, on how he saw his father treat his mother and having affairs, and that kind of led Tiger to viewing those values like, oh, okay, well, they're flexible, and I think he would, one of Tiger Woods' dad's good friends talked about it during the documentary and said, I really regret that Tiger had to see that. And, it's unfortunate. Tiger's still a great player and has accomplished a lot. But what it really taught me was, how much of an influence I do have on my son. And that could be positive, that could be negative. And I've tried my best to guide him off of my values, and that's, rooted in faith. And, we even have family values that we talked about, and we developed them together, Christian and I, and we talked about it. We even named it. It's called The Way of the Wolf. And the reason it's called The Way of the Wolf is Lopez literally translates into wolf. Okay. So it's our family animal. And he thought that was fun, getting to know about our heritage.
Sure. You got a mascot. It's
built
in.
We've got a mascot already. So tell me a little bit about your values. It's one thing I've always really admired about you and your family is, you don't do anything without purpose and without it being rooted in your values.
Yeah, and again, my dad's my hero, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my mother as well. God love her. I mean, she put up with effectively 4 boys in the house, right? But she was made to be a boy mom, and she was, and still is, just a fantastic mother, and really showed that through her love and support, not only of my father but of us, and so family values for us, and I try to keep everything very simple. God first, others second, self last. That's it. It's if you literally wake up every day thinking God first, others second, me last, you're gonna be okay. Like you may not have the best of days, but you're gonna have a fulfilled day, and you're gonna feel relevant that you've done something extraordinary. Right? And everybody knows what extraordinary really dissected into really is. It's the ordinary with a little bit of extra.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So it's really understanding that. And so for me, as I walk through that, right, I can't control what my children do. I mean, in some ways I can, right? They're
You're
little
still
and
bad,
I'm dad,
so.
and I can kind of put the barriers around it. But at the end of the day, I don't control who they become. I control the environment they grow up in. And we do very quickly become our parents, good or bad. We can break bad cycles, and I tell people that all the time.
100%, absolutely.
Right? But for me, every day, and it's interesting that I've got a unique dynamic because I've got daughters and a son. And I will tell you, I was terrified when I found out I was having a girl. First off, when I was having Emerson, I was like,
what do I do?
I don't know how to do this because every part of my life, I had my father as a shining example. I had a great example for Emerson, and it was my mother. And it was recognizing that everything I do from a perspective of how I would want my mother treated in a situation. But secondarily, everything that she sees me do is something she will ultimately gravitate in the man who later becomes her husband, and what her expectations will be of that man as a father. And I am also beyond blessed that I have the best partner in life in my wife, Jenna. And she's a fantastic mother. And so it makes it much easier to be who I am. But everything that Emerson and Arabella see me do will ultimately someday. So that's the family value is it goes beyond the golden rule, right? Which is, do unto others. But in so much as you can't expect from others anything you're not willing to do yourself. And so if I expect my children to do what's right, I have to do what's right. If I expect them to make good choices, I have to make good choices. And that's the environment that we sit in. And the same thing goes for my son, right? Is I am giving him the clear example of who I want him to be. So if I'm not doing the right thing, you can do all the right things and you do the wrong thing, boy, that goes south really quick. Doesn't mean I'm not going to make mistakes. We're human, but I got to own them, and I got to admit them to them, right, when I do.
Absolutely.
And there have been times where I've had to go to my children and say, Daddy was wrong. Those are hard conversations to have. And what's amazing is my kids give me grace for that, right? Daddy lost his temper, or Daddy didn't react that way, the way he should, or set the wrong example. And so in doing that, though, again, I think that is every day when I wake up, it is, there's that new song by Walker Hayes, right? I got to keep my daughter off my pole, my son out of jail, got to go to church so I don't go to hell. It's a catchy song, but it was kind of the joking moment. Jenna and I, when we first started having kids, I said, I can't remember what I did. I think Emerson was probably like 6 months old, and I went, oh no. She goes, what? I said, this was the moment. She goes, the moment what? I said, if she ends up on Dr. Phil's couch, this is the moment that's going to get her there.
At 6 months old.
So, no, I think it is being honest with yourself about that, but recognizing every day I'm setting an example for my daughters of the man that I hope that they ultimately end up with. And if I'm doing that wrong, then I'm setting the wrong example. And then I'm setting an example for my son every day of the man I hope one day he is. And if I am not the man that I want him to be, then I have no right to expect differently from him.
I always use the adage of be the superhero your kid thinks you are.
Yeah.
And if they think you are, then you're doing a great job.
Yeah.
So, but it's like you said, it's a you're setting an example for your son to be the man that you hope him to be later on, and who you hope your daughter marries later on. Yeah. Like someone that has the same values, treats them the same way.
And I think there's one other thing to that. And I give you a lot of credit to this, dude. I've watched you, and I've told you this so many times. You set the bar so high as a dad, watching you with Christian.
Thank you.
It makes me want to try to even get it close to that bar. But I think there's a point to be made there, which is your kids will also watch whom you associate with.
Oh, 100%.
Well, right? Yeah. And so if I am associating with friends like you, I noticed that you had Spencer Smith on. Yeah. Spencer's a great dude, great dad, good husband, business ethics. I mean, those are the people that I surround myself with as well, right? Because if I surround myself with people like you, people like Spencer, I've got some great friends that I grew up with in Midland that are still my best friends today. And these are good guys who are good, amazing fathers, fantastic husbands, live by their faith. Two things happen, right? You keep out those blind spots and distractions that can lead you astray. Actually, more than two things. Second, you're setting a fantastic example for your kids of who they will ultimately one day associate with, right? We say that all the time. You can't choose what other people do, but you can choose who you hang out with.
Oh, 100%. Right? It's the old adage of iron sharpens iron.
That's exactly right. So I want my kids to see that I am surrounding myself with good people that care about their families, men that don't cheat on their spouses, men that care about their children, that sacrifice themselves, but also sacrifice to make themselves better and invest in themselves. These are all things that we've talked about today and that are extremely important. And I think that is a critical component that sometimes gets lost too, right? We all have those friends from high school or back in the day, and we're like,
they have the stories that you don't want people to tell.
That's exactly right. And I'm not saying that you should, cut those people out of your life, but you should limit the amount of time you spend with them if they're not trying to fix what's going on. And you should absolutely limit the amount of time that your kids see those people, because they will see that. And they will also, in my opinion, think it's okay because daddy is around them and obviously condones that.
And it's back to one of the first things you said about having a budget and the debits and credits. It's too much of an expense to hang around those people, and it doesn't get you into to a positive area with your balance. So why hang around those people? Why spend extra time with them?
That's exactly right.
So you're one of the money men on TV, as you know. I always laugh when they call you that, because I just know you as Seth. And I'm like, he knows a lot. Okay, he's a money man. Tell me about what guidance you would give your kids about budget and macroeconomics versus microeconomics of your personal budget.
I take the same approach with my kids on that as I do myself, and B, really with anybody else, which is you have to keep it simple, right? Sure. We try to overcomplicate, and I think people try to overcomplicate, especially in today's world where there's enormous amounts of information out there, right? And people can consume information. And I say we have the largest generation of informed idiots I've ever met, right? Because we're super informed, but we have no idea what to do with that information. I think it's why, your household debt is at all-time highs, right? All of the issues that people live in paycheck to paycheck. So it starts very simple. Let's keep it simple, right? Make sure that your inflow is greater than your outflow. All things start there, right? There's this great Saturday Night Live skit years ago, and it was Steve Martin, and I can't remember who all else was in it. It was effectively, it's like an infomercial for stop spending money you don't have. Yeah, it's exactly that simple. And that really is the premise of every foundation, right? If you're not bringing in more than you're letting out, you will never have enough to invest, to save, to create emergency funds. Debt should be always the last resort. Now, like all things, and I don't subscribe to all debt is bad debt, right? I also think renting forever is a bad idea. You probably want to buy a house, and if you need a mortgage to do that, that's probably a good idea. You're not going to get a good job if you can't get from A to B. And we live in Texas, and the busing system isn't all that great from the suburbs. So you may need to go get a car, but 100%. Be reasonable in what you get, right? Do those things, make those deposits. And then secondarily, it's okay to not be the expert at everything. Yes, I am the money man on TV, and I talk about all things financial, and I talk about what's going on in the business and market. We talked this morning about Elon Musk and Twitter and all of these different things. But here's the reality. I still don't know what I don't know, and I pay people to do that. Meaning, I let somebody manage my financial portfolio for me. I don't do that on my own. If I'm doing it on my own, I call that gambling. And that's fine, so long as I've got the money to do it with. But don't gamble anything you're not willing to lose, right? So I have competent people that are specifically focused on what my goals and objectives are. And I think anybody should do that. And I think if you're not doing that, you're making a huge mistake, because you will always look at your own money emotionally. You should have somebody looking at your money that is non-emotional about it. That is the most important advice, right? When you're thinking about investing in finances, you will always be emotional about your own money. Have somebody managing your money that isn't emotional about it.
Oh, I've been there. When I see red and I see it do this,
That's right.
I'm like, oh no.
My financial advisor recently, after all of the ups and downs we've seen in the market as of late, was like, Seth, stop opening the app. Like, you're allowed to open it once a week, and if I still think that's not enough, I'm going to have you start opening it once a month. You're fine, and unless you hear from me, you're going to be fine. And that's something that Jen and I have to work through too. We have very different. Dave Ramsey calls it the dreamers and the planners. I'll let you decide which one you think I am. But like literally, I think I still have on an Excel spreadsheet every dollar I've ever spent since I was probably 12 years old. But from that perspective, again, keep it simple with my kids from a financial perspective. It's make sure your inflow is greater than your outflow. Be wise with your money. Make investments over time. Everything is long-term. Everything you do with money should be with a long-term moment in mind, even memories. And that's something that Jenna and I had to get on the same page with, was memories are long-term investments. And it's okay to spend money on them.
100%.
Right? And then for married people, what I tell people all the time is what I said earlier, you always tell the truth. You don't have to remember what you say. Same goes for money. Joint bank accounts. Joint bank accounts. You want a successful marriage? The vast majority of marriages fail in the United States today because of financial challenges and issues. The vast majority of them
don't have a joint account.
And when I talk to a lot of them, it is, well, I have my account, she has hers, or he has his. And
my money and her money,
that's it.
Not our money.
No. And when it comes to marriage, it ain't 50-50. It's 100-100. It's 100. Yeah. You're either 100% in or you're not. And if you're not,
100%,
you're probably going to get out, right? So from a financial perspective, for young couples, I tell them this all the time. As quickly as possible, close your personal accounts and get a joint one. Because if you're not on the same page on that money now, when you don't have any of it, guess what? Two things will happen. You either never will have it, or when you do, you won't be on the same page then. And when you have more of it and you're not on the same page, the issues become even greater.
Yeah, as far as finance with the kids go, one of the first pieces, actually the first piece of advice I got with teaching kids about budget was from a good friend when I owned a CrossFit in Little Rock. Jason Roberts is his name. Fantastic dad, just cool person in general. And he mentioned when he had his son for a weekend, he laid out money on the coffee table. And he's like, here's how much money we have for the weekend, son. And I think it was $100. And he laid it out, I believe it was in tens or in dollar bills. He's like, we can order pizza. And then here's the pizza right there. Now here's the rest of the money we have for the weekend. So what else do you want to do? You want to buy a video game? Okay, you just crossed out everything else for the weekend. So like you said, you have inflow, you have outflow. So make sure the two match up. And if you have, the genius thing to me was he explained to him, hey, whatever you have left over, we can toss into the bucket for next weekend we're together. Mm-hmm. So now we can do even more. So if you pick and choose what you can do, it's great. And I do that with Christian. Like you said, memories are investments. Those are usually pricey. We've gone to Disneyland, and my pandemic story is I was in Disneyland the day before they shut down, and I was taking a conference call about the pandemic, and I was in Cinderella's castle. So I'm probably the only dad that has taken that call in Cinderella's castle trying to figure out everything. And then, 2 days later, it shut down. First time in I think it was like 60 years that they had shut down. And, same thing with, I love experiences because, those are the memories that I remember with my dad growing up. I still remember the one time he took us, to Six Flags by himself without our mom. And it was great. Did we have a lot of money? No, but it was cool that Dad took time out of his schedule to take us on that trip. And I knew that was an investment for him because we grew up lower middle class. We didn't have, everything. And, couponing was a huge thing in the house.
Same here, yeah.
So understanding that, and helping Christian understand how much those experiences mean, but that is why I work hard. And that is why I show him, hey, here's what I do. Mm-hmm. And here's how to balance everything. Like you said, debits and credits. One thing I think we both connect on too is we both love food.
Absolutely.
I know you're a foodie. I'm a foodie.
I think they had to put the wide angle lens on the camera over there, make sure they got all of me into it. So yeah.
Tell me why food is important to you, and what do you want your kids to understand about it?
Because food.
Well, because the question is because during the pandemic, there's a lot of things shown about the underbelly of American health, and one of those was like we talked about savings. Americans didn't have savings.
Yeah.
That's what we spent trillions of dollars on for stimulus checks. But the lingering one that people didn't want to talk about was how unhealthy we are because of how overweight we are due to our food. So yes, just like those memories are expensive and those experiences cost money, our food choices also cost us as well. And those I can still think about some of the best meals I've had, and were they nutritious? Absolutely not. But they were delicious.
Yeah.
So I knew that was another part of, hey, that's an experience, that's an investment.
Sure.
It's fine. So
yeah,
tell me about your thoughts.
Again, fitness, one of the four quadrants, yep. the four Fs. There's a fifth F that we try not to use too much, but fitness. It's a family-friendly podcast. It's so when I got, and I think you know this story, but when I got done playing ball, I gained the freshman 50, not 15. I think the standard is 15. I was about 50.
You're an overachiever.
Listen. I really liked food. My metabolism changed. It was very quick. So fast forward, I always say Jenna fell in love with me when I was fat. So I knew it was real. But when I was 29, I sat in front of my doctor who said, I'm worried you're about to have a heart attack and I'm about to put you on these blood pressure medications. And of course, you and I, knowing the business, know that once you get on those, it's very rare to ever
you don't get off.
That's right. So I said, Doc, I know it doesn't look like this, but I used to be an athlete. And so, trust me, tell me how much weight I need to lose. He said, you need to lose 50 pounds. I said, okay. And at the time, I'm 225 pounds. Now, you can't tell if you're watching on camera, but I'm 5'8" on a good day when I'm wearing, nice heeled shoes. So 225 pounds in this little package was a lot for me.
Sure.
And I said, okay, 50 pounds. I said, well, how long do I have to lose that? And he goes, you need to do it in 6 months. Now,
wow,
there was the goal. This was pre-kids, right? Now, what I didn't know when he told me that was that 3 months later, I would leave the firm I was at and start a new firm. So you're adding that additional challenge.
Extra stress.
On. But I lost 60 pounds in 6 months because I had a goal, I focused in, I locked in, and I did it. And so what I tell my kids about food is the same thing as that. Now, am I still where I was then? No. Matter of fact, that probably was too little. I was too, I didn't need to lose that much weight. But for me now, I'm actually on this fitness regimen right now. It's the same thing with everything. If you want to be an expert at something, you got to invest time at it. If you want to have a fit life and a long, healthy life, you need to invest time at it. And the same thing for food is the same thing with your finances. Inflow versus outflow. And if your outflow of your exercised activity is not more than the inflow of what you're shoving down your gullet, you're going to be in debt.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's a bad thing. And so every once in a while, I will have a little bit of time where and it's okay to have 1 or 2 days like that. But you need to make sure that over time, short time, because if you don't do it over a short amount of time, this is the one time where you will lose that long-term investment. you need to do that. So for our kids, it's making wise decisions now about, you got to have something green on your plate, and fried okra doesn't count. I try to convince Jenna that it does.
It's the South. It should count, right?
Connor is all into Hulk, so he's convinced that Hulk Jell-O counts, but it doesn't. But yeah, so you gotta balance those things out. I'm sorry, you gotta eat healthy. If by eating healthy you get to splurge and have an unhealthy treat,
sure,
we call it a treat. But we have to exercise. We have to do these things. We have to make sure that inflow is greater than the outflow, and in doing so, we'll be fine. Same message. That's a great thing, man. No. I told you earlier, I got to keep everything simple. I'm not that smart. So I got to keep
we joke about
simple.
it all the time. Right? I talk in analogies all the time because I'm not smart. So I got to simplify things.
Yeah, exactly.
I think in a meeting at work a couple of weeks ago, it was a virtual meeting. And I was like, how do I get people to understand this? I'm like, does everybody know Legos? Like, yeah, I was like, well, there's two ways you can do this. You can follow the instructions or you can build it on your own.
That's it.
I'll help you build it on your own. And they're like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah. I'm like, yeah. They're like, no one's ever told us that before. Yeah. They talk about, insurance, stop loss, all this. Like, no, we don't need to talk about all that.
Let's try to overcomplicate everything.
I always say, let's whittle it down to where my 8-year-old can understand.
Yep.
And I know I'm doing a good job if I can do that.
I tell this to people all the time. If someone is trying to make something more complicated, then they're showing you their lack of confidence of their own knowledge. And you've heard me say this. In life, I live by this. This is the premise that I live my vocational life by. But in reality, it kind of feeds into all of my other aspects of my life, is the preparation leads to knowledge. Knowledge leads to confidence. Confidence to enthusiasm. And enthusiasm sells. And if you ain't selling, you ain't winning. And that's in every aspect of your life. You ever met my wife? I'm a pretty good salesman, right? Your time, you are selling. You're selling yourself. You're selling somebody on their investment of time with you. You're selling your kids on the good time. You're selling yourself on the memories. You're selling a client this. You're selling your boss to keep your job. Everybody is selling all the time. And if you're not believing that, you're lying to yourself. So put in the preparation to invest the time to develop your knowledge. That knowledge will lead to confidence, confidence to enthusiasm, and enthusiasm will sell.
And I think you see that with most successful people is, I often talk about Joe Rogan. He talks about just having an obsessive personality, and he wants to dive into something. So he did it with podcasts. He did it with comedy. He did it with karate. And, I think most successful people have that, where they're going to dedicate the time, they're going to dive into it, and they're going to be able to block out all the noise. Yeah. And like you said, simplify it. And say, hey, what are we doing today? How can we not overcomplicate this? We're wrapping up the show. I appreciate you being here, but I always like to end the podcast with, if you had to leave your kids with one piece of knowledge and you weren't here tomorrow, what would it be?
I heard somebody say this the other day, and so it's kind of cliche-esque, but time is the one thing that you can lose but you can't ever gain. Right. For my kids, it's recognizing that there is, time is yours to do with whatever you want for as long as you have it. But recognize this about yourself. You are uniquely and wonderfully made, you, the way God made you. Now, God will call you to do certain things. Those things that he calls you to, he will equip you to do. And that's your role. That's your job in life, is to find out how to maximize the time for those things that God calls you to do and have the faith to understand that he will equip you to do them. And if he hasn't, then he hadn't called you to it. And that is a waste of your time. So invest that time wisely. Understand there is only one you. God knew you before he created the earth, and he made you for you. And that is all you need to know. As long as you're okay with that, you're going to be successful.
Perfect. That's a great way to end the podcast. I thank you again for coming on the show. I know you have a busy schedule, and I look forward to having discussions outside of this. And hey, hopefully the Stars make the playoffs, and
we'll have more discussions.
We'll continue these conversations.
That's right. So, absolutely.
Thank you, and
thanks, man.
Have a good one.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for joining Rad Dad Podcast, everyone. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next episode.